Hello, printmakers! Crushed it that time, I would just like to say. So in this video, we're going to go over drawing and etching your kitchen lithography aluminum foil plate. The materials you'll need are aluminum foil, Coca-Cola, yes, you heard that correctly, lithographic crayons, paper towels, and a bin or plastic tub, maybe even a tray that you can submerge that tin foil all the way in.
I will say that Brett and I did a lot of experimentation. I think Brett will back me up on this. And that if you buy any form of soda that does not have the ingredients that Coca-Cola has in it, is specifically making sure it has corn syrup.
High fructose corn syrup.
High fructose corn syrup, thank you. That will cause problems in this process. There are parts of lithography that, if you're familiar with it, that the Coca-Cola makes up for in two parts, both the acid as well as the gum arabic. So if you can think about it like a combined item, your Coca-Cola acts as both of those. And without the high fructose corn syrup, the process does not work. So if you get that type of cola that like Whole Foods, for example, sells, not endorsing them, just saying Whole Food sells Coca-Cola or a cola brand that doesn't have high fructose corn syrup, you will have issues. You need the corn syrup. So we recommend using Coca-Cola, but I believe that Pepsi will work approximately close to the same. But we recommend highly that you use Coca-Cola. It's really not that expensive, and we go with that brand just because we know it works. So make sure you wear gloves if you have some available. This is not necessarily for your safety so much because you're really dealing with Coca-Cola and oily substances. The reason for is you don't want to contaminate the tinfoil with the oil that's on your hands. You want to make sure you are controlling for how much oil and acids are being used here. So this is really important that you put your gloves on and you do not touch the outside of the gloves when you put them on. You only touch the inside. Again, control for those variables, as well as making sure you wear the gloves throughout the process so that the oils, the natural oils that are on your hands, do not get onto the plate. That small amount of oil will contaminate the surface.
As Sam just mentioned, throughout this entire process, cleanliness is key. You'll hear us say it a lot as we're cleaning off the plate and printing the plate. Just controlling for all the variables. We tried this a multiplicity of times in a multiplicity of different ways. And we finally got it to work, so we've made it easy for you. So now that you're all gloved up and you're ready to go, you're going to tear 2 sheets of that aluminum tin foil. We already have ours torn in the video, but you'll go ahead and do that. And you want to make sure that that tin foil, one, is large enough where your image area is going to sit somewhere near the center. This is going to help a lot when you go to ink it up. 2, small enough where it's going to fit in the tub of your Coca-Cola, because you're going to want to completely submerge it. So 2 large sheets of tin foil. Ours are probably just about 6 by 8, 4 by 8. Postcard size is where I would start.
6 by 8. I would go a little larger than postcard size. Pull a full sheet out, whatever your size is, and then tear it off when you get to about 8 inches is what my recommendation would be. Whatever the width is of your full thing, and then work in the center of that, as Brett was saying. I would also like to add in that we use lithographic drawing materials that are specifically designed as drawing materials. We use Korn's lithographic drawing crayons. I'm sure there are other brands that make lithographic drawing crayons, but this is the brand that we use and we found was effective. There are also other types of oil-based drawing materials that you could experiment with, but here, again, we would recommend that you use a lithographic drawing material. Again, a very specific material for this process.
As Sam emphasized before, we're going to be very specific with the materials. A note on your tinfoil, as before Sam noted, Coca-Cola, high fructose corn syrup, tinfoil, no dots. You don't want dots or dimples on your tinfoil, as that will make the process null and void, essentially. It will not etch properly, so you want the tinfoil without dimples and dots.
Also, carbonation in that Coca-Cola is key. It adds to the process for how your acid is functioning. And Coca-Cola has a certain acid content, but the carbonation adds to that. And it's important that the carbonation be included in that. If you have non-carbonated cola, that's a problem. You need carbonated Coca-Cola. So make sure I say that as well. Like Brett said, we used 5 by hand, 5 by 7, the image that's about palm or hand sized in the center of that. And remember, if you use text, you have to write it backwards. It will print forwards, but it has to be written backwards. Our recommendation when you're doing this is to draw it while you're in the mirror. And if you draw it in the mirror so that it looks correct in the mirror on your material, you hold it up to the mirror and you draw it out properly, what's going to end up happening is that your word will be written correctly on your plate so that it comes out properly. And you can do this fumbling like in the mirror and practice it and be like, okay, that's the way the letters have to do. And then you can do it in your stylized, artistic way. But just to be clear, that's a necessary part of this process.
So as the video continues here, you'll see that I made the unfortunate mistake of drawing the correct direction. So just another reminder that this is going to be in the reverse. Text is super important. If you have a figural component that you want sitting a specific way or looking a specific direction, be sure, as Sam says, to sketch it out in a mirror, or just remember that it needs to be in reverse. And you'll continue to draw on the surface of the aluminum tinfoil until your image is complete. Something that we found is that bolder lines tend to work better. As we start to draw here, you'll see us, we both chose to do more of a bold design. Mine was text-based and Sam was more of a cartoon figure. Though we have done it testing all the different sides and drawing mechanisms of these lithographic crayons, and you can get some shading. You just risk the fact that it'll fill in as you continue to that printing process later.
Again, trying to stay in the center is an important part where we apologize for some of the shakiness of the video because we're working on the same desk that this is being filmed in. But as Brett was saying, he's doing the example of writing it the incorrect way, and then he makes this correction as the video goes on, and you'll see him writing it the opposite way. So when we say incorrect, if you're reading English and it's left to right, you have to be aware that the text will be flipped when it's printed. So as you put it down, it will be inverted, right? So make sure that you write it in reverse. So you can see he's writing litho in the readable normal way, and then it has to be corrected for that. Like Brett was saying, again, gradations or values when you're making drawings often have a difficult time in showing up. So as you can see, there's litho, but you could write it in the correct way as I am doing for Brett as he's laughing and beating himself up a little here. But I want to make sure that you are aware that it's an easy mistake to make. So the rest of Brett's image will show some of that. Again, values don't show up as clearly or as well in this kitchen lithography process. I think the longer you etch for, the greater you get a sense of that value range. When you're making drawings and you're trying to lay down some like in-between grays or some very light grays using the lithographic crayons. We don't demonstrate that process very well in this video specifically, but again, what Brett said, with a quick 25-minute etch, when we put it in the Coca-Cola, that's really how you're going to control for that. Because it's about how you keep your plate together, your image centered with the lithographic process. So in a few minutes, as Brett is about to talk about.
As we go ahead, I just wanted to point out that we had just before the video started poured the basin full of Coca-Cola. So as Sam says, it's still fresh. Once we are done drawing, we're going to go ahead and submerge those in the Coca-Cola, making sure that the image is completely covered. We found that you can either put them in face up and pour additional Coke on top of them, but the best method that tends to work is flipping them upside down and making sure they're face down in that Coca-Cola. Just so that that entire area where you put down the grease from your lithographic crayon, wow, we really are a little shaky. When you put down the grease from the lithographic crayon, making sure that's coming in contact with that Coca-Cola and adding additional Coke as we go, just to ensure that there's still a fresh amount of carbonated cola in our basin.
Yeah. So you can see there's drawing material on my hands. Before I grab the plate again, I am taking as much as I can off of as much as my hand out of the glove, and then I'm only grabbing the edges of my plate. Then I'm pouring Coca-Cola on top of it, right? As I put it in the acid bath, the Coca-Cola bath. That's what Coca-Cola is going to do. It's going to be your etch for this process. It's also going to act as the gum arabic, so it's both protecting your areas where you don't want to collect ink or grease, and it is also collecting or etching those areas where you do want it to collect grease. So this is why we're very specific about trying to keep your hands off of the image area as much as you can, and only where you want grease is where you're laying down grease. So don't allow your fingertips to go into that image area. Don't allow your hand to touch any of that, right? You see that I'm flipping it, as Brett mentioned, but also I'm pouring in more Coca-Cola to begin the etch process on both sides. And this is so that the carbonation can come up and touch the image itself. This is really where we got the best results. When we only left it face up, we didn't have as good results as when the image area itself is face down in the fluid. The tin foil itself is face down with the image side down in the Coca-Cola, with the carbonation getting contact against that. We also recommend you can move push the Coca-Cola back and forth a little bit, lifting the corner of your area to help that carbonation to move back and forth along the surface of your plate. Any other thoughts, Brett?
I would say this is a big one. Let it etch for a minimum of 20 to 25 minutes. It's not gonna etch in, like we tried at different increments, a minimum of 20 to 25. Don't put it in and expect it to work at 5 minutes. Don't rush to do this process. Take your time, let it sit. Once again, a minimum of 20 to 25. If you end up leaving it in for 30 to 45, you should be all right. Just make sure it's in there for that 20-minute minimum. And then once you're done, before we move on to the next video, you'll take out the etch plate, and we will see you during our printing video of these kitchen lithography aluminum foil plates.
And we would say 20 to 25 minimum. Max, I wouldn't go much longer than 45 minutes. That's the max that both we worked with, and then that's the max that we saw other people use as well across the spectrum of people who've been making work. So this is the end of our video, as Brett was saying. Thanks again, printmakers, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.